Hi, friends. Hello. My name is Alena Shautsova. I'm an immigration attorney from New York, and tonight we're going to be discussing the most interesting recent immigration news. Have you heard of neighborhood checks? Well, I'm going to tell you what those are and why they may be important for your immigration case. I also am going to provide you with an update on Real ID implementation, which is very important. And of course, we'll share some other very interesting immigration news, sometimes unexpected. So thank you very much for joining. Again, my name is Alena Shautsova. I'm an immigration attorney based in New York, but I do help people in all 50 states and overseas. And I use my social media to share news, tips, my thoughts on various developments in the United States immigration. And of course, I answer your guys' questions live. So if you have US immigration questions for me, please type them up in comments section. So after I'm done updating you with regard to the most interesting immigration news, we're going to discuss your questions. Don't forget to like and share the stream. If you're watching me on TikTok, please send your hearts. If you're watching me on YouTube, like and share it. On Facebook, you can share stars, and let's start. The first interesting development that I wanted to talk to you about concerns, again, citizenship and 400. It is reported by the media that the United States is going to resume what's called neighborhood checks. It's a deep background check for somebody who is filing for citizenship. So what's going to happen, and we already had the memo in place that was published in the mid-August. What's going to happen is that not only you have to be proactive now when you're filing for citizenship, sharing on top of everything else, references, recommendation letters, letters from community leaders, evidence of you volunteering in the United States, your lawful employment, how you pay your taxes, that you paid your taxes in full. No longer mentioning of the payment plans. You have to pay your taxes in full and things like that. On top of everything else, USCIS has discretion, excuse me, to go to your neighbors and your co-workers and ask questions about you. Sort of what they do when you're filing for green card based on marriage, right? When they're trying to check if you have a real marriage or not, they're going to try to check if you're a real person or not, if you are who you are, if you like to be an American, if you like living in America, or you pretend, or you are sharing some views, complaints that gives them an idea not to grant your citizenship application. So that's what's going on, all right? According to this new mass media outlet, the last time the government was using this particular tool when considering an application was in 1991. So it was a while ago, but of course they always can start something that they decided was a bad idea a long time ago. Why not, right? So that's something you need to know about. Now, if you had problems with your neighbors, right? Think about this, because now their words of people who are, just strangers to you, may count more than anything that you're going to present before USCIS together with your attorney. Another very interesting news is that, of course, you may be aware that the United States court allowed Trump administration to end TPS for people from Nepal, Honduras, and Nicaragua, and it says it is set to be expiring at the beginning of September. Now, if you're one of those affected people and you are afraid that your status may expire in a couple of weeks, unless there will be another hold, which I doubt, but let's say something is going to happen, and you may you may find yourself out of status, you need to think about asylum. If you may qualify for asylum, and then of course, when status expires, you may file for it. Not everyone is going to qualify for it, obviously, right? But listen, why not? Consult with an attorney and see if it's something for you. Some people may have other protections like U visa, T visa. Maybe they were lucky enough to have to qualify for adjustment of status. I'm not sure, but this is something that you need to be aware of. And of course, follow immigration news and make sure that you're on top of your status, right? Because as you see, sometimes your status may be terminated just because of the court's order, right? And you find out about this because you watch the news. So it's kind of wild, I have to tell you. It is wild. Now, another very interesting update. Do you recall the situation with the judge who, at the beginning of the ICE enforcement campaign, allowed a person in her state courtroom to escape ICE? Like she sort of guided the person and allowed them to escape the courtroom so that they would not be picked up by ICE. Well, ICE picked up that person later, and the judge got into a lot of trouble. The judge got federally charged with various federal crimes related to, or allegations of crimes related to the situation. And she's currently fighting her case, and she tried to stop those charges by filing a motion to dismiss those charges, and it didn't work. So she may be facing, if she's convicted, I think 6 years in jail, right? So this is something that was just reported today about her situation. Now, I promised you a Real ID update. So do you recall in May, Real ID kicked in? But it sort of wasn't enforced when you would go for immigration interviews, appointments, especially if you're an attorney. Okay, you could show your attorney ID instead of a Real ID, which is a passport or your driver's license with a special sign. That is changing. It seems that the federal government finally is going to be enforcing it pretty strictly, and you need to know about this. If you're inviting your interpreter to come with you to a federal building, or even your lawyer, they have to have a Real ID to enter now. Starting next week, at least in New York, that was the announcement, not even announcement, rumors that we received from the guards at the building. But you need to be aware of this very important thing. Why? Because if you are not allowed for your hearing, for your interview, for whatever business that you have, your appointment, because of this Real ID situation, guess who's going to be to blame? You're going to be to blame. That's who. Nobody else going to be to blame. The government is going to just deny you benefit potentially, and they will not care. They're going to say that you knew about this or you should have known about that, and this is the law and this is how it's going to be. So just again, keep this in mind. All right, that Real ID now is a real thing and it will be enforced. And now, guys, if you have questions, I'll be very happy to answer them. Let me know if you are in stress, if you would like to know something about the United States immigration, how things are going, right? So let's see. Hi, Rob. Hi, Rob. Do I need to return the expired work permit on the oath ceremony? Yes. Typically, you would have to return your green card and that as well. And why would you still have it if you had a green card? Like you were holding on to the long expired work permit? It's very interesting. All right. Let's see. Don't be shy, guys. Hi, Wise Haupt. Your best friend is here. You seem to be my very good friend because you never miss any lives. All right, let me see what questions we have on TikTok. Hi, you guys. How you all doing? We have a lot of questions on TikTok. I will try to do my best to answer them in the order they were received, right? That's the message that we always get when we call somebody. Let's see. Mhm. Hi, Alex. I-751 approved based on extreme cruelty. Can I file N-400, 3 years, was married to a US citizen? Yes, you can. Yes, guys. So this VAWA, which so-called VAWA benefits, extend for those who received I-751 approval based on VAWA-like grounds. All right, that's possible. Thank you very much, 552, for your gift. There is no ID, it's just the numerical name. All right, am I so worried my case, deferral removal? Oh, you have a deferral of removal and you're worried about your case. All right, so I would say that prior to this administration, people who had withholding of removal, CAT, deferral of removal were pretty safe, right? Nobody was going after you guys. But this administration is different. I'd say that in most cases, you still don't need to worry about anything. However, if you are found in a place where there is this active ICE raid and they're just going to grab you, for example, or if you commit some sort of a violation, there is a great chance, unfortunately, that you also can be picked up and they will try to process you. You maybe following the case of Mr. Garcia, a person who had withholding of removal, and the government grabbed him and deported him to El Salvador. Then they were ordered to bring him back, and now he's, seems to be the government is trying to deport him again. But this time around, they're going about it the right way. This time around, they will be reopening his deportation case and a removal case that happened a long time ago, and they will ask the judge to end his protection. All right, so that's what's happening. So technically speaking, it's possible to lose such a protection if the government follows due process and if the immigration judge, immigration court agrees with the government that a person has to lose the status. Okay, that's what may happen, but hopefully it will not happen. Okay. All right. Hi, Chief. Does USCIS retain prosecutorial discretion from previous I-130 that is pending for VAWA PD? Retain priority date, I think, right? That if USCIS retains priority date from previous I-130 that is pending for VAWA lawful permanent resident spouse, yes, you can use that priority date, but you have to ask them about that. You have to ask for the priority date to be transferred. Yes, it's possible. Let's see. Do we have more questions? Removal granted CAT, correct, right? So we spoke about that. It's possible, unfortunately, to lose status. Hopefully it's not going to happen to you. Thank you, AJBC, for your gift. Hi, Lo, I have a work permit. My case was closed, but I have court 9 years later. I'm married to a US citizen for 3 years. So you have a work permit and your case was perhaps administratively closed, and now you have court. So marrying a US citizen, guys, may help you to get status in the United States if you also have parole entry, authorized entry, or if you have if you entered the United States on a visa. Okay, so you're either an arriving alien or you were inspected and admitted. Then marriage will help you to get status in the United States. If you don't have that, will it help you marrying a US citizen? Well, it will, but you will have to use I-601A waiver route. It's going to be a different route then, all right? And of course, you don't know what's going to happen because there have to be extreme hardships and the person has to qualify for the waiver. That's the difference, okay? Hi, Labubu. I'm a green card. My husband is not treating me right. Divorce affect my green card? So you already received the green card, and you feel that your husband is abusing you, right? Not good relationship. If it's a conditional green card for 2 years and you divorce that person, you'll have to proceed removing the conditions on your green card by yourself. And it can be challenging sometimes, but possible, as long as you can prove that either that the marriage was entered in a good faith, but ended in divorce, but it was a real marriage, or if the marriage was entered in good faith, it was a real marriage, and you were abused during the marriage, no divorce is necessary. Okay. Or you can also use the third ground, which is hardship to yourself due to certain circumstances. So it's still possible. It may be a little bit harder, but you don't have to stay in an abusive relationship just for the green card, because there are ways to go around it as long as your marriage is real. Okay. Hi Rahman, how long time takes Tier 1 visa interview in embassy in Pakistan? How long you have to wait for the interview to be scheduled? Uh, it really depends. Like last year, people were waiting for a very long time, right? Now I think the wait times, generally speaking, are much shorter. However, what I've noticed, for whatever reason, people miss their appointments, and that's why they develop various issues. So you have to really stay on top of your emails, make sure that you don't change your email address. And if you feel that you waited for 6 months plus and there is no information about your interview appointment, you have to follow up with the consulate about that. Okay, and then we see depending on where the case is. Hi, Steven. Please know someone you love believes you are capable of putting a dent in this world. It's a question. I guess we're all capable of putting something in this world, hopefully a good dent rather than a bad one, right? We can change the world somehow, hopefully in a good way. Hi, Carla. I'm currently under MPIP. I'm in the process of renewing it. Does my military son have to submit a letter stating it's important for me to remain in the country from I-131? So you have a military parole in place and you would like to renew it. Do you need a letter from your son? Yes. This is a discretionary thing. USCIS doesn't have to agree with it. So you would like to put as much evidence as you can, as many letters, references of good moral character, and letters of support as you can. So typically, yes, you would want to attach something, even though hardship is not required. But if you have a kid in the military, you probably want to have their voice heard by USCIS explaining why it's so important that this benefit is granted. Why didn't you file for adjustment of status yet? What's going on? If you don't want to share that, you don't have to, all right? But, there's something to think about. Hi, Blanca. They approved military parole, but I have to exit to my original country. Can I still apply for a green card? Well, if you come back to the United States on a parole, yes. Thank you. Thank you, Lam, for your gift. Thank you, Labubu, for your gift. Hi, Swami. In May 2025, applied for I-45, but almost 3 months, no receipt. How can I check status? Don't worry. The problem is that it takes sometimes 4.5 months currently to receive a receipt from USCIS. As long as you have proof that USCIS received your mail, you should be fine. Okay. Hi, Patch Forge. You filed for a green card based on marriage and you're waiting for TPS. Am I legal here? I think you're in an authorized stay, right? That's what it is. To be legal here, you have to have a green card, or lawful non-immigrant status, or active parole, or TPS granted. If you have TPS pending, you have only authorized stay. And it's a problem right now with TPS, unfortunately, because a lot of TPS applications are in limbo. People are waiting and waiting for them to be decided, but the government is not deciding them quickly. Okay? All right. USCIS and wait for the mail. Yes, you will receive receipt by mail. All right. Let's see what questions we have from YouTubers. Hi, current scenario. I had citizenship interview 2 years ago, and I went to interview, and officer said my asylum file is not in his table. He can't take interviews. Still 2 years. I'm waiting for the interview date. Oh my goodness! You have to contact your congressman and ask them to schedule that interview. You also have to understand something that just because you didn't have the interview scheduled doesn't mean that they didn't do anything on your case. Sometimes it means that they started doing the deep background search, right? If they find some information contrary to the one you left on your asylum case, you may be in trouble. So prepare very well and discuss with your lawyer any efforts any steps that you would like to take. For example, like pushing the government so that they're going to schedule that interview. If there is any chance, if there is no chance and you have absolutely clean case, then just push them and go for it. Okay. Hi, Monique. How long does it take for a petition for minor child filed by a U.S. citizen step-parent? It was done from last August. Is this normal time frame? Monique, where is that kid? Are they overseas? If they are overseas, it may take longer. Another question, you sponsored the kid's parent, right? You filed for them as well. Was that case approved already? Typically, if the case for the child's parent was approved, but the kid is overseas, it will take some time. For some reason, cases for beneficiaries who are overseas are taking longer. Okay. Let's see. Hi, Chief. Can someone adjust status on the F2A now in legal parole status and legal entry? Previous entry without inspection. I think they should be able to. At least that was the position of Biden's administration, because we had cases like this. This administration started messing with parole. They started saying, no, it's not really a status, right? At the beginning, they actually were saying that people who came in parole status, entered the United States with a parole, are still subject to expedited removal proceedings. Well, later the court reversed that. Okay. But I think if you have valid parole, you should be able to adjust. At least that's what it was during the Biden administration. I'm not aware of any official explanations why it's not the case from this administration yet. Okay. What if you try? What are you afraid of? If you have active parole, they're not going to do anything to you. You know. Of course, if by then it expires, it's a totally different story. But then again, I don't think you're going to lose much if it's denied. All right. Hi, Garcia. I have case cancellation of removal. My daughter have asthma and condition therapy. All right, and what's your question, please? Are you asking perhaps if that's enough to win a case? It's possible to win a case when the kid has severe asthma, all right? When they have to be, when they see doctors frequently, when they are in a special kind of therapy, when they have to have access to special medications, yes, it's possible to win a case like this. But it's all also so fact specific, and it also depends on the judge who's going to be listening to you. Some judges, man, they're tough. Some judges, they just don't care really, and others have different position, right? Hi, William. They approved I-765. Do I have to wait for Social Security or have to go to Social Security office? I think you'll have to go to the Social Security office. Starting mid-March, Trump's administration stated that they're no longer going to give you automatically a Social Security card when you have your work permit approved. So if I were you, I would go there, right? Who is paying for that therapy? Well, how do you know that they're not paying for that therapy, Weishaupt? So what may happen is that the kid is a US citizen and the government of the United States pays for US citizen children, right? So, guys, lots of questions about Europe. I cannot help you to go to Europe, even if I wanted to. I know I have an accent, but I'm practicing in America and I have license to practice law only in the United States and one more country, but it's not that Europe that you are looking to go to. All right? Yes. Hi, Govinda. What's the present situation of asylum seekers whose case is pending? Well, guys, if your case is pending, you're waiting for the interview or you're waiting for your court, you have to be ready for your case. I see so many people who are waiting, who have been waiting for their asylum interviews for years. And guess what? They haven't done anything since they filed the case. Like they got relaxed and they don't worry about anything anymore. They just think that it's going to be automatic, that the judge is going to believe them, that they're still facing danger in their home country. Let me tell you, this is not the case. Judges have always been tough and now tougher than ever. If they see that you filed your case 9 years ago and there were no developments in terms of new threats, changed country conditions, and things like that, that would put you in danger, they're going to say, well, listen, show us how 9 years later you are still afraid to go back to your home country. If you cannot show that, you cannot explain why the people who were after you back then is still after you, your case is not going to be granted. But maybe your situation changed, maybe country conditions changed. Again, you constantly have to stay on top of your case, all right? You don't just sit and do nothing waiting for that interview because they expect you to update your evidence. They expect you to update your Form 589. So that's what you need to be doing. Prepare. Get yourself an expert on country conditions. Show them if you still have those political views or you still go to the same church, right? Whatever is happening in your life, you still have to work on your case while you're waiting, collecting the evidence and stuff, right? Thank you, Guzar. Is it normal not to receive for 2 months notice of action for our case? Yes, currently it's totally normal, unfortunately, yes. It takes about 4 months to get that notice, sometimes even longer, all right? What is the duties of a co-sponsor for I-130, citizen married waiting process overseas with foreign spouse? Are you going to be signing that joint sponsor affidavit of support? Well, you need to read it. At least please read the form. The duties are not that heavy or important if the immigrant you're sponsoring is going to be an honest person and is going to be working in the United States, or their spouse is going to be, watching out for them and giving them the money and supporting them. But if that person is going to become a burden for the United States, if they will be subject to long-term health care, institutionalized health care, you're going to pick up that check. you will be the person who will have to pay for that immigrant's treatment. So it's quite a serious commitment. Typically, I think in 99.9% of cases, everything will be fine. And you will never have to worry about the government trying to get this money to force you to pick up that check. But sometimes it does happen. If you know that, and it sounds horrible, but if you know that the person is in poor health and upon coming to the United States, they will not be able to support themselves, and you have family and assets to protect, now it's a concern for you. So you really need to read the commitment you will be entering into by signing that Form I-864, because it's a contract between you, the government, and that immigrant. You're promising both the government and that immigrant that you're going to step in if the sponsor is not doing anything, but it's not even required. The joint sponsor means that the government may go after either of you. That's what joint liability is. So it's a serious commitment. Again, in most absolute majority of the cases, you have nothing to worry about, but use common sense. Okay, the reason. All right. All right. Spouse will handle finances but needs sponsor while overseas to be with the spouse. All right, so just use common sense. If you're sure that that person is not going to drop the ball and, something's going to happen, then you should be okay. But read the form yourself. Just sit down and read it, right? Now it's possible, even if your English is not super duper English, it's possible to use ChatGPT, every immigrant's best friend, to translate things. I'm laughing because very often ChatGPT, which, listen, I'm very excited about all AI tools. If you're following my page, you see I use images from AI, I use different things from AI. I love AI, but you have to double check it. It's not, unfortunately, yet at the level where we can 100% rely on what this thing is telling us. There was a famous news situation where ChatGPT told the guy that he can substitute salt with some kind of a chemical, and the poor person got poisoned by that chemical. So it's just very straightforward example. But very often when I ask ChatGPT for help drafting my blogs or something, I see that it gives me wrong information, and I ask them, "You just made up a case. Why did you do that?" And it tells me back, "Oh, I'm so sorry. You're right." So it's like, please just make sure that you don't rely on ChatGPT all the time. Okay. All right. If you guys need my services for anything, especially if I helped you in the past, please call my office 917-885-2261. Write me an email. If especially you were my former client, schedule appointment, and we're going to see what we can do for you, what else, if anything, you need to be done, and how to go about that. Okay. Hi, the chosen one. Can a derivative citizen get denaturalized? The process is different, so what's the clarification? Derivative citizen, are you talking about the person who received citizenship as a kid automatically? Can they lose the citizenship? Yeah, I think so. Absolutely. Of course they can. Same probably grounds would apply. What may happen if the parents through whom they receive the citizenship is going to be found not to qualify for citizenship at the time when they received it, then the kid should not have become the citizen. I think that would be probably the situation, right? But you need to know something very interesting, a tip of the day. This is how it happens usually. Before the government is filing the lawsuit to denaturalize something, they're typically going to send you a letter and your lawyer saying, leave the country yourself and we're not going to touch your family, okay? They will basically negotiate with you. They will be saving resources on the lawsuit. If you're not gonna fight, they're not gonna go after those who received status through you because of you. Whatever you choose. Okay? You decide what you want to choose, but they typically offer this. Okay? All right. And let me see if you guys have more questions. All right. Hi, Monique. I got my green card through US citizen husband last year here in the United States, but still waiting for my minor child petition to complete since last August in the United States. Oh, Monique, so if you were the person who just have a permanent residence, right, and you submitted petition for your kid, it's different. Then the kid is not an immediate relative. The kid will be in the preference category, all right? So that process for the kids in the preference category, if I'm not mistaken, is taking about 3 years. You can check visibility and you will see it. If the US citizen files for a step kid, that's different. The kid, if the parents married prior to the child's 18th birthday, is considered to be immediate relative and they're not subject to extra wait time and quotas. That's a big difference, all right? But then, of course, I do not know what's happening in the family and why it was done this way and things like that, all right? Hi, Halados, how long is to receive a green card after applying? Well, I guess it depends on the basis for the green card, whether or not there will be an interview, which in most cases now there will be an interview, whether or not you should expect long background checks. I'll tell you this. Currently, the fastest green card cases that are being approved are the ones filed when the person married US citizen. It takes only 3 to 4 months. 3 to 4 months for the case to be approved. Okay. The longest ones, probably the ones that a person is filing for after they received asylum. Why? Because of this extra background checks. And it may take years sometimes, unfortunately. But that's what's happening. Each case is different, each jurisdiction is different, and you have to really also wait for paper notice. I'm going to give you another very interesting example. Yesterday, our office went for an interview for a client, a long-term client of mine, who almost became like a friend in connection with their green card interview. And today in the morning, the client is writing emails. What's going to happen? I see that it says the case is terminated. I'm so worried. And the true termination comes only usually when the government places you in removal proceedings. So I know that there are no grounds for this case not to be approved, but I do not know what's happening. And I said, listen, it only can happen in this one situation. The person is very stressed out now. Now, by 5 o'clock, the government finally properly updates their online system and it says that the case was approved. All right. So the point is this: whatever happens in your case after you filed it, I know that you're very anxious to receive the decision. You do not know when it's going to come. You go online and check this online status all the time. But the only thing that truly matters is the paper notice or official notice. It can sometimes not be a paper notice that comes to your USCIS account or to your mailbox. That is something that we can rely on. All kind of online updates, speculations as to how long it may take, what's going to happen, why the update is not updated after the interview. It still says that interview is pending. All that does not matter. Okay. So I can tell you that it may take only a couple of weeks to receive a green card, but your case may be different. All right. I'm sponsored by a company and received my H-1B by October 1st. So it's not a green card case. It's a H-1B case, something, or you also, or you. company sponsored you for a green card and it's EB something case, let me know. If it's a regular EB2, EB3 case, right? And you filed for adjustment of status and your priority date was current, then you look usually at 8 to 9 months for them to decide the case, usually, right? All right, guys. Well, thank you very much for joining tonight. As always, it was fun. I shared some immigration news. I shared my thoughts on what's happening, and I answered some of you guys' questions at least. So I hope you like that. If so, please don't forget to subscribe to my social media channels. So we're going to meet again. And of course, also, I use my social media to update you throughout the day on various developments, stories I publish, various stories, interesting stories, using my Instagram and Facebook. And this way you also can stay in touch and stay on top of various immigration developments. Thank you very much for tonight, and I hope to see you guys